You just bought a game on Steam, $69.99, standard price. Feels fair. Now, imagine finding out that someone in another country paid the exact same $69.99, except in their currency, that's the equivalent of 3 days' wages. Same game, same platform, completely different reality. That's not a hypothetical. That's been the actual situation for millions of Steam users around the world for years. And for years, the gaming community has been loud about it. So when Valve quietly dropped a major update to how game prices work worldwide, people noticed. Hello, I'm Particle. Today, we're breaking down exactly what Steam just changed, why it matters more than most people realize, and why there's a very important catch that nobody seems to be talking about. To understand why this update is a big deal, you need to understand how broken the old system actually was. Steam supports pricing in 37 different currencies across the globe. The idea has always been reasonable. Let developers set local prices so that games are accessible to players everywhere, not just in countries where $60 or $70 is pocket change. In theory, a game that costs $70 in the US should cost something proportional and fair in Poland, Brazil, or Indonesia. In practice, that system stopped reflecting reality a long time ago. The last major update to Steam's regional pricing data was back in 2022, and in the years that followed, currencies shifted, inflation hit certain markets hard, and the gap between what the data suggested and what people were actually paying became enormous. Players in Poland were paying 20 to 30% more for games than a straight currency conversion would justify. In Brazil, AAA titles were routinely priced 67% above Steam's own suggested regional amounts. A game like Crimson Desert cost $69.99 in the US and $80 in Europe. Metal Gear Solid Delta Sneak Eater, $69.99 in the US and nearly $100 in Poland. The community didn't stay quiet. A grassroots movement called Polish Our Prices launched in 2023 and spent months reaching out directly to developers and publishers, respectfully, persistently, negotiating price reductions for over 400 major titles on Steam, one game at a time. 400 games. That's how broken the system was, and that's how determined players were to fix it. So, what did Valve finally do about it? The update Valve just rolled out does two things. First, it refreshes the underlying pricing conversion data to better reflect current market conditions around the world, something that, as we just established, was long overdue. But the more interesting part is the second thing. Valve has introduced 3 distinct pricing conversion methods that developers can now choose from when setting prices across 37 currencies and 4 regional groups. The first is exchange rate conversion. Simple and direct. It takes the current currency exchange rate and converts your USD price into local currency. No adjustments, no frills. What you see is what the math says. The second is purchasing power conversion. This one pulls from public data on average purchasing power within a given country or region. The idea is that $69 shouldn't hit the same way in a country where the average monthly income is $400 as it does somewhere where it's $4,000. This method tries to account for that reality. The third is the multivariable conversion, and this is the most sophisticated option. It combines local purchasing power, the expected cost of comparable entertainment in the region, and the current exchange rate all into one calculation. According to Valve, this most closely matches the method that was previously baked into the pricing tool, just significantly updated and more transparent. Valve has also built an interactive tool in the Steamworks documentation so developers can see exactly how each method applies to their game's prices across every supported currency before they commit to anything. On paper, this is a meaningful step forward. The data is fresher, the options are clearer, and for the first time, developers have real flexibility in how they approach global pricing. So, what's the problem? Here's the part of this story that most coverage glosses over. Valve doesn't set prices. Developers and publishers do. That has always been the case on Steam, and this update doesn't change it. Valve is handing studios better tools and better data, but it cannot force anyone to use them. In Valve's own FAQ about this update, they're explicit. Your prices won't change unless you manually submit and publish new prices. And critically, whether you follow or diverge from any of the provided conversion options has no impact on store visibility. Valve is not penalizing developers who ignore the new tools. So what actually happens next? For indie developers, the outlook is reasonably optimistic. Historically, smaller studios tend to follow Steam's suggested pricing closely. They don't have the bandwidth for complex regional pricing strategies, and the defaults work well enough. With better defaults now in place, newly released indie games should, in theory, launch with fairer regional prices from day one. For major publishers, the picture is murkier. Large studios have routinely diverged from Steam's suggestions in ways that hurt players in price-sensitive markets. Some simply apply the full USD price globally, regardless of what the purchasing power data says. With over 20,000 games releasing on Steam every year, expecting every publisher to audit their prices and adopt the new methods voluntarily is frankly optimistic. And then there's the existing library. Valve has been clear that it will not retroactively change prices for games already on the platform, which means every title released before this update, every game sitting in that backlog of regionally mispriced products, stays exactly where it is unless the developer manually steps in and changes it. The Polish Our Prices movement will likely need to enter a new phase. The tools are better now, but the persuasion still has to happen. Let's zoom out for a second, because there's something important happening beneath the surface of this update. Valve has consistently made decisions that strengthen Steam as a platform over everything else. And here's the thing about regional pricing. When games are too expensive for a significant portion of your user base, those users don't simply pay the higher price. They pirate. They use VPNs to buy from cheaper regions. They buy gray market keys. They just don't buy at all. None of those outcomes are good for developers, for the platform, or for the health of the industry as a whole. Better regional pricing isn't just an act of goodwill toward international players. It's a business decision that expands the addressable market for every game on Steam. More players who can actually afford to buy means more sales, more reviews, more community activity, more longevity. Valve understands this. That's why this update exists. But the execution requires buy-in from thousands of independent studios and massive publishers, entities with very different priorities, resources, and levels of attentiveness to regional pricing data. What Valve has done is remove the excuse. The data is there, the tools are there, the interactive pricing calculator is there. If a game launches with unfair regional pricing after this update, it's a conscious choice, not an oversight. So, did Steam just fix game prices worldwide? Kind of. The infrastructure is better, the data is more accurate, and the options available to developers are meaningfully improved. For players in markets that have been overpaying for years, this is real progress, even if it doesn't feel like it yet. But the catch is real too. This update is only as powerful as the willingness of the people who actually set prices to use it. Valve built a better road. Whether developers actually drive on it is another question entirely. The next few weeks will be telling. Watch your regional prices. Watch whether your favorite games get updated. And if they don't, well, the Polish Our Prices playbook still works. The community proved that. So yeah, Valve didn't just flip a switch and make everything fair overnight, but they handed the industry a much better set of tools. What happens next is up to the studios. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Are prices actually changing for you, or is this update already being ignored? I read everything. Leave a like and subscribe if you found this useful. And don't forget, I'm Particle.